everybody? Welcome to KC Happy Hour, episode number 77. Apologies about not being on the air last week as we were getting back. We had flight delays. Actually, once I got home, I had 101-degree fever. I had run myself into the ground over the last 8 weeks of us running, but no excuses. We're back this week. A lot of last week's topics that we were going to hit. We want to hit this week. We always like doing a big show and kind of the aftermath of a major pro national race or any major race that we do go and stream. There's always a lot of talking points. There's a lot to break down from the opening 2 months of the season. We're just at the end of February. We've had a lot of racing already. There's still, of course, this Orlando stint coming up. Teams roll in this week for kind of the first test weekend. There's going to be roughly two. This test weekend, the U.S. Pro Kart Series, ROK Florida Winter Tour, another kind of test weekend, gap weekend, then the SCUSA Pro Tour. And in those gap weekend, there's racing. Obviously, this weekend, over 300 competitors for a combined total of somewhere in the north of 350 plus entries are headed to the Cup Karts North America Charlotte Spring Nationals, which is going to be a major event. And I got to say now we've had a lot of people asking about us. Are we going to be able to be over to CKNA events? We're just starting to see if we can make something happen for maybe CKNA Grands in Newcastle. This is just a lot for us logistically and everything. And full disclosure, a lot of it was on me for dropping the ball and not getting the ball rolling early enough to try and see what we can do to make that happen. But I know a lot of you guys are going to race that event. A lot of people have friends going to race over in Charlotte. At the same time, of course, there's the Challenge of the Americas going out on the West Coast to Phoenix, Arizona. That'll be another solid event. It's the second in the ongoing. One of the biggest storylines of the year is that FIA CIK OKN class. They had 9 entries at the opening round. Didn't have all the engine manufacturers there. More are still coming in the States. If you want a little more info on that, our friends over at EKN with Rob and David and Nate, they did an awesome job having a face-to-face show with Chase Jones, I believe, with Seth Nash, or maybe not Seth Nash, maybe Blake Nash or Matt Johnson, one of the Nash Motorsports representatives. Ron White Racing has been big and proponent of helping get that deal going. So they did a really cool podcast about a week and a half ago that kind of detailed a lot of the stuff they learned from that first weekend. And of course, this class is going to be a prominent talking point through the whole year with the Stars Championship Series kicking off in May. But that's what's coming up this weekend. COTA on the West Coast. On the East Coast, the 4-stroke Spring Nats, the second of the 3 Crown Jewel Briggs 206 races on the year, with probably the biggest turnout of drivers so far this season. And when it comes to individual drivers, as well as entry count, the races have been massive. Those guys are doing a great job over there, and so that's all coming. But tonight, we got Mike Burrell from ROK USA to kind of help us break down a lot of the stuff that came out of the Piquet Race Park event. I know a lot of you guys have had questions. We've had a few submitted. We obviously want to get stuff kind of laid out a little bit on our own as well. But, this is also Mike's only second month into the whole deal, and I'd love to talk to him a whole lot about kind of coming into a position like with the ROK Cup group, because it's a whole new job, whole new experience, and a lot you get thrown right in the fire of and everything else. So Aaron Hackmeister's joining me here tonight. Aaron, as always, helping me out. Aaron, we got some stats as well for the CKNA Spring Nats, some cool numbers that we got.
Yeah, so like you said, 360 or over 350 entries, probably floating around 360 right now. 51 drivers doing double duty, so running 2 classes on the same weekend, which is really cool. A lot of drivers that are able to go and push themselves to perform, try to perform in multiple classes, stuff like that. There are 32 states and 2 Canadian provinces represented, so we are getting drivers from Canada starting to be able to show back up, which we saw last year. We started to see the Canadians being able to come back across. But Canada did bring in over 50 entries, which is the most for any specific region out there. I think Florida is here at 39 right now, but Canada really representing strong for the CKNA Spring Nationals.
And along with CKNA, a shout out I wanted to give here over the weekend. Some of you guys saw on my personal socials. I got to go and be the keynote speaker at the newly rebranded Ohio Sprint Series, formerly Buckeye Karting Challenge banquet up in Cleveland. And up in that area, of course, Fremont Raceway Park in Ohio. While everyone was either watching the Super Bowl or down at the ROK Cup Florida Winter Tour, there was the actually, I think that wasn't. No, the Super Bowl was on the SCUSA weekend, wasn't it, Aaron? We were watching the Super Bowl from Miami.
That was a SCUSA weekend.
Yeah, I'm mixed up. So this is another week back. So 3 weeks ago, they had their Snowball 250, which is crazy that these Northerners are wild enough to go racing in early February, but they did. They had Canadians come down. They had $250 to win, and congrats to Dylan Jans who took the win there in the 48 Performance. So we always like to give little shout outs. As always, if you've got your regional or club series you want to promote, want to give a little bit of love to them, because the show goes out live, but we also get a lot of podcast listeners and a lot of guys on YouTube as well. Without further ado, Mr. Mike Burrell, thank you for joining us in the studio tonight. We appreciate having you join us and hopping on in. So thank you.
Oh, thanks for having me, guys.
So let's start with you first of all, man. I mean, I can't imagine what's got to be the last 2 months, probably 3 months of your life since the announcement came into early December, right? And getting acclimated. I mean, how much of a whirlwind has it been? How much of a life adjustment? How crazy has it been from you to kind of take the helm of one of the big three promoters and engine importers and sanctioning bodies in the States?
It's been busy, that's for sure. Kind of jumped in right before the busiest part of the year for ROK Cup. I guess I could have jumped in before Vegas and made it a little bit harder, but jumping in right before Winter Tour was definitely hard. But fortunately, Garrett and Robbie and Ursula had a great staff already in place and made it real easy just to pretty much come in and get the ball rolling and get going.
And your background for karters tuning in, right? I mean, you're a spotter in IndyCar. You've been involved in racing for decades on decades. Your background kind of goes a good bit ways. So how much of, I don't know if culture shock's the right word. Has there been any kind of, wow, this is a lot different than what I'm used to? Or is it a lot of just, kind of another gig in the racing world? Has it been feeling like for you getting involved?
Yeah, it's just like about anything else in racing. I mean, it's got some things you want to be different and things that you're learning from, and they're like, oh, that's a great idea. I wish I would have known it years ago. So, I mean, it's been very similar to everything else in racing. Everybody chips in, everybody's doing their part, and actually making it pretty easy. So
would you say at this point now that you feel comfortable and acclimated already? Like, do you feel like you're at home? Does it still have that new car smell and feel? I mean, is there where do you say yourself?
Yeah, it's still got some new car feel and smell to it. Still learning, and when I talked to Mr. Rabasi at OTK about it, he said let's learn and kind of keep the status quo going this year, and then let's start to look towards the future starting in 24. So, we got some big ideas in the works, and I'm going to go to Italy here the 1st of May and discuss them. And hopefully they'll start to become public after that. So we'll see.
I was going to say, I think it's, it's cool to always kind of get, even if it's racing blood, but just a refresh or reset, almost set of eyes at any given point throughout the sport. And you kind of come into a new position, even if it's in racing, with that rejuvenated, you're fueled up and ready to go. You and I have talked even a little bit back at St. Pete and then over at Piquet, right? Like, there's so many things obviously that we can improve on in the sport, but there's a lot of, doors we've never really knocked on, in karting that we could, right? I mean, there's a lot of ways that we could go to kind of work on the whole industry, as well as just with where you're at with ROK.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things you and I talked about at St. Pete was all the potential a race in a middle of a major city like St. Petersburg at a baseball stadium has. Once I got talking to the people that run the baseball team and the stadium there, they were like, oh, we'd love to be involved in this more. And, they started talking about sponsors they had for the Tampa Bay Rays that they would like to get involved and bring them out to the go-kart races. So, I think we're just touching the tip of the iceberg on some of that stuff. And, we could really make it a true event that kind of grows karting and gets exposure at many different levels there. I mean, you get a Major League Baseball team that wants to support your race. It's kind of cool.
And that's something you've been involved in, right? We think about like the Elkhart Grand Prix up in the Midwest. I mean, that's an event last year that was free entry and free pit passes for drivers to show up. And so what those deals are like. And I don't know how much we can kind of go into a little bit on here, but to explain to the people like that race has not only the city behind it, but also, some major companies behind it as well too already.
Yeah, Elkhart, Indiana is I think 80% of the RVs in the world are made there, and like sport utility trailers and things. So they really get behind it. We raised enough sponsorship at that event that people could just show up and race. Hey, you want to race 5 classes? Okay, fine. Buy a set of tires and go race. So, there were no pit pass costs. There was no entry fee costs. You just buy a set of tires and go race. And, because we raised the corporate sponsorship around that area from the RV industry. And, I'm thinking maybe we can start to do the same thing at St. Pete and some other locations down the way here.
Well, it's super cool to get into that. St. Pete was, even this year we talked about it. I mean, the parking lots we go to, street races, they're bumpy. Our racers have been spoiled, for lack of a better word, with some really, really amazing facilities. And a big thanks to the guys that have invested in the sport and made some really, really, beautiful racetracks that are really run well. I mean, we're going to Orlando here. That obviously, Andre's investing a ton in that place. He wants to continue to get bigger and bigger kart races there. Fully paved parking lot. He's expanded the parking. He's put a new walkway in for everybody to come and try to, host a lot of racers there. So that's really cool. But again, like that event, to have something like that behind it, however it falls, would be super cool. And then, from our perspective as a racer, even talking with Robbie and you kind of, in as well, I'll give you some credit, although I know that was really weekend one on the job for you. The track design that Robbie did was cool. And we talked about it a little bit on here that, it seemed like we had legitimately probably double to triple the passing zones we had even from the previous year, with just a few minor changes to barriers and stuff like that made the racing well. And then, you guys put a lot of thought into PK. I think everybody knew coming into Piquet Race Park that was going to be a tight fit. Even talking with Carlos, we've had him on this show. It was like, man, we're the city, anywhere you build a racetrack, a city, a county, a state government is going to throw a lot of new goalposts and move the goalposts and make it that much harder for you to do your job right and put a proper facility down. But it wasn't a last second bailout. You guys were there on property weeks out trying to scope out and make what you could and play Tetris probably tougher than I think a lot of guys have ever had to do when it comes to parking alone. I can't even imagine. Did you even take a note of like when you got to the track and when you left on the early days on that week?
Oh yeah. I take a lot of notes on that, but all that credit goes to Robbie. I mean, honest to God, he is the Tetris world champion for that deal. The parking there was, amazingly difficult. Robbie did an incredible job getting all the teams and the RVs and everybody in there. And then, Carlos needs a gold medal too for his patience dealing with, like you said, the city. They kept moving the goalpost on him, and he had deals to do some parking at places around there, and then they fell apart the last minute. And one person from the city would come and say, you can park here, you're fine. And the next person will come and say, no, you can't park there. And it's like, good Lord. So, give Robbie and Carlos both a ton of credit for their patience and imagination on getting everybody in there. So, but Carlos has already told us, all these ideas they got for improvement and all the stuff they learned from it. And he's like, I promise the next time we come back, this will be awesome. So.
Right. I mean, even after Rotax and then after that one, I know he knows, now he's run the racetrack 2 different ways, with full fields. I mean, I was joking with him right after the Rotax event. We had him on here. That was about as high of a level of a stress test as a new go-kart track in business could go through, with a brand new staff and, and having a major national, international event, back to back, a regional level at 100 entries of the Rotax. That was big. Survived at a couple big grids, and then ROK pulls in with more entries in St. Pete, right? I mean, we were right around.
Yeah, we doubled right at 200.
Yeah. So massive turnout, and then when the big guys show up, there's a lot more guys at a national that have RVs. You go from 5 RVs at the Rotax race. I think we counted 5 or 6. We had at least 15, if not 20, that were somehow jammed in there.
I think Ursula said we had 26 or 7. I don't even know how we did it. I mean, I didn't know you could stack them on top of each other, but I guess they figured it out.
I was proud of parking myself because I still don't feel comfortable parking mine. And Aaron wasn't in for move-in day, but the rest of the guys were like making fun of me because I was like giving myself personal pats on the back for parking that thing. I've parked trailers, I've done that in racing, but it was tight. Everybody was tight and fitting the whole deal in. And, From a racing perspective, it was rough with a couple of the curbs, right, and a couple of the bumpy sections. I think I was talking with a lot of guys coming out of that race that I think some of the rib injuries guys were hitting was like that right hand kink going into the two hairpins in the final sector. It's the same issue that they have. We had guys didn't really have any rib injuries from the first Homestead round, and I know that at least with Louis Westover and Senior, and if there's one guy, there's probably a couple others you haven't heard of. Can't talk to everyone perfectly. That it was like 3 laps to go in the Sunday main event at Homestead, and going backwards there, you have a similar situation where there's a 90-degree right that leads into a quick, hard braking zone. So it's already going to throw you to the front of the car, and it's faster to launch off it, and it's a CIK level curb, and so you jump it and you land, and that's where those rib injuries come in, because you get in the air and then you land on the top of the seat instead of into the side of it where your rib protector is. And sometimes you split the rib protector and the rib protector gives a little gap, and boom, that plastic top of the seat just drives into your rib cage and was hurting guys. To me, I think that was part of it. The bumpiness, I'd grown up on bumpy racetracks. You've done street racing.
Oh, I was a street racer, so I mean that didn't bother me.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
But from safety side, ambulance didn't roll.
Ambulance didn't roll. It had a couple checkouts, but nobody was transported. So that's that's our number one priority. Putting on a race, this should be everybody's number one priority anywhere. But same thing. Carlos and William down there at the track were telling us. They're like, well, we're told it'd take a year for everything to settle, and after that we'll get ready to repave it, and it'll be smooth as glass. So, I'm hoping they get to that place. I think their owner and the Piquet family. I know Nelson Jr. spent a lot of time down there. I don't think he's there for our race. I know he's there some for the Rotex race and some of the other times. And I think they're all behind it, and they'll turn that place into a first-class facility for sure.
And so we move from that. I don't want to beat around the bush on the negatives, right? We know part of the reason that this whole part, I'm sure a lot of you want answers, right? Everyone get worked up on a race weekend. I was joking with you, I was joking with Robbie. At the end of the day, like, the press stuff moves fast, the spotlight moves quick, it does blow over, but that doesn't mean that it's worth sweeping every little discrepancy or every little hurt feeling under the rug. So the tires was a big conversation on discrepancy. I know texting with you last week, first kind of discussing how we wanted to help you guys be an open platform for it, but also you were looking for answers just like anybody. So from your perspective on the whole deal, right? I mean, we know there was, like, what did you know? What did you find out? I mean, from the 7 to the 8,000 series and the whole handling of everything as best you guys could, and looking back.
Looking back, there still wasn't much different we could have done. We had the tires on site that we had, and it would have taken, a whole nother day at least to get other tires in there. But then we were getting so much information from people racing, from tuners, from so many different directions. It was really getting hard to pinpoint, okay, this is the problem. Is the problem, first question was, is the problem safety? And no, it didn't appear to be a safety problem. It appeared to be a performance problem. And then we asked a few people, it was like, well, what's different? Well, they're just slower. Okay. Is everybody slower? Yeah, everybody's slower. Okay. So is there a problem? I mean, did the track change? We're at a new track, so it took us a while to get all the answers in, to really see, okay, there's a problem with this tire is harder than the tire we were practicing on, and the tire that was issued at St. Pete. And then we had to kind of figure out in the serial numbers, like, where the problem started. And, we just did what we could down there, and which wasn't as much. This past week, we've had meetings with the factory and everything, and they've showed us how to figure out, the differences in the tires. And I can be 99% confident when we get to Orlando, we're going to have, equal tires for everything.
Right. And so there was two kind of, at least like almost separate complaints that I could kind of attribute down from the little bits I heard, which is probably still less from you guys. So these were my kind of two questions I had. Is there was one half that was there was like the whole way different batch from like the 7,000 series to the 8,000 series serial numbers. And from my understanding, right, you guys had everyone set on the race tires they were picking up. They were all racing on the 8,000s, right? And that was the first kind of understanding that there was a pretty big swing in speed from those two. Is that correct?
Even a little more precise than that, it was even a little bit later in that series, that 8,000 series. So we kind of had the middle of that whole series. And, so we kind of got in the middle of where things started to change. And, the factory is just like every other factory. They get, raw materials, and they come in from different sources, and their availability changes, especially right now with, coming out of a pandemic and a war in Europe. I hate to sound like a news guy, but they're seeing different materials in manufacturing and just trying to get everything in there. So, it took us a while, but we figured out where the kind of the split is, and we figured out how to control that. We know the same tires will be at the same place. So I don't know if that answered the question, or
did we lose Xander?
It looks like it. Or
we might have lost Xander here. I'm sorry. Yeah, I think we lost Xander. We'll give him a minute there. If you want to keep going, I was kind of wondering, like going
kind of laughing at his frozen frame here.
Yeah, I'm trying to keep it smaller so he doesn't get put on blast or anything later on. So he takes a screenshot. But moving later on, moving into the weekend, how much did you know, going in, that there may be a problem? Did you have any idea? Were you coming in completely blind, or did you have some idea? That might be something?
We had no idea with the tires that were there that they would be any different.
Okay, gotcha. So you came in with no clue what was going on, no idea that there would be a type of issue or anything like that.
No.
Okay.
I mean, everybody.
There we go. Here we have Xander again. All right,
we had two Xanders.
We got you. We good?
We do. Somehow there's two of me. Hold on. Delete that other guy.
Yeah, I got it. Okay.
I think the internet just went out of my house. So no. My internet went out, and I'm in a transition on equipment, and a lot of stuff's in Florida, and I've got a laundry list of excuses ready. Don't get me wrong for it going out, but it went out, so I'm back. But yeah, as you were going, you guys, I'm trying to pick up where you were left off. Where I last heard, I think when we were talking, it was the middle of the series was transition. There's the stuff going on in Europe, right? Ukraine has been, it's a big exporter of raw materials, right? So that's a factor into everybody. I mean, that's one thing that we even talked a little bit on some of the race broadcasts, even at, SCUSA races with the MG tires. Guys were complaining about bad tire sets. Now, it was never that for them. It didn't seem like there was a major change or like a specific batch number that was bad, but I'd never heard really before this year, and maybe Supernats, of guys saying, oh, we got we got dealt a bad hand. I mean, I think it was like, I don't know, I haven't heard that stuff in a while. The last tire drama we ever hear about is stuff that would go on at WK with special tires getting handed out to certain teams, but nothing on a parity issue.
Yeah, and this happens in every form of motorsports. I mean, a couple of years ago, we were running second or third in the Indy 500 with Colton Herta, and got a bad set of tires, and next thing you know, we're 16th. And then we start chasing the car, thinking it's the car or the track, and no, it's really just a set of tires. And so I mean, IndyCar has problems, IMSA has problems, NASCAR has problems. It's just like I told somebody, it's kind of just. It sounded like it was our turn to have a little mix up in control, and we definitely learned from it. I have learned more about tire manufacturing and sequencing and packaging this week than I ever thought I would know.
And then, like, from an operation standpoint, right? I know that we have drivers meetings. The Stars series, those guys have tried to kind of lean away from drivers meetings and do more like team principal meetings and shop owner meetings where drivers can show up, but it's optional for it's really targeted towards like the guys that are handling the equipment, and so it's a little bit on, hey, what do you need more on, what's the issues on pit space, or generic stuff on the weekend, because when you have a drivers meeting but you have 8-year-olds at it, it's not like those guys go back to the pits and they're the best at relaying everything that was
Right.
happening. So for me, I've been a big fan of what those guys have done with that specific feature they've had, and I mean, I looked back too. I thought that's maybe the only thing that you know could have been done. And I don't know, have you kind of gone through that on the process side of like an weekend as well? I'm sure a lot of the week was spent on like tires, but hey, is there some way we could you know whether it's
Oh,
get everybody together or go back through it or whatever.
oh, for sure. I mean, yeah, Robbie and I talked a lot, and um, yeah, I mean, we get hit with some issue again. I mean, you know, getting a little small group together at the track of the leadership and start to really pinpoint it, and then get the, like you said, some of the team principals and everybody over there to, okay, let's narrow this down and let's get the facts, not, this guy's, this guy got good tires, or get more fact based than just rumors and hurt feelings, I guess. But yeah, we talked about a whole bunch of different ideas and procedures if this sort of thing, God help us, that comes up again.
And Aaron, I don't want to switch off the tires too quick. Aaron, did you have one more thing to add there? Because there's a couple other questions I had here, but I wanted to, before we put a little nail on that one.
Yeah, so obviously, like, some people left the weekend with a bad taste in their mouth. Is there anything you can talk about moving into Orlando to kind of reassure people that either whatever's going on is in control, or you've got a handle on what needs to be done here? You have anything you can tell us about that, or is that all still kind of in the works and not really finalized yet?
No, there's 2 complete containers of different batch tires in Orlando at OTK's place. We're going to bring a container that's not even been opened yet. We'll be selling the exact same practice as race tire. All those tire codes on the outside of the boxes are being sent back to Italy this week, just to verify that they were all produced the same time, the same way, the same batch compounds. So I mean, I got a couple emails today that were very detailed, 3,000 line long tire explanations, on Excel, just with exact days that they were, the compound was mixed, the tires cured, and they were boxed. So, I think we got a pretty good handle on the quality control. The factory's been very forthcoming in information that, we give them information, then they give it, right back to us. So, I'm pretty confident that we're going to have, a good handle on going into Orlando, knowing exactly what we have.
Cool. Well, I mean, that's awesome to hear the level of investment that you guys and ROK are putting in. I mean, that's not a cheap experiment in flight to send all that stuff back over and to get containers moving around. I mean, with the current supply chain of everything, even talking a little bit with different people, I mean, everyone's got probably 2 containers in the middle of the ocean at any given point right now, if at minimum, whether you're a go-kart importer, parts importer, tire importer. So that stuff's not cheap.
No.
And moving from the tires, one other thing you guys did for Sunday's main with the ROK Juniors, you guys did like a full clean pump with the fuel. Was that just kind of more so with the tech guys? Were you part of that as well? Or like in the know on how that went down?
I got involved in that. We had an engine builder bring something to our attention that he said could be mixed with the fuel and fool the traditional Digitron meter that everybody uses to test specific gravity of fuel. So Robbie had the idea of mixing up, 6 cans of new fuel that we had mixed up there on the grid, and then we brought the top 6 up with empty tanks, and we filled them right there on the grid. It didn't really seem to make much of a difference. The guys that were fast were still fast, and I think 5 of those top 6 still finished in the top 6. So we're probably going to keep on top of that. We're going to take some fuel samples, and I have nothing wrong with OTK and everybody at ROK wants everything to be on the up and up, so they have nothing wrong with taking some samples, sealing them up. I got a little experience in evidence handling. Seal them up, and we'll send them to a lab and see what's in them. So, we're gonna probably mix up and probably be a surprise. We'll call a class or 2 to the grid and tell how many, the top 6, the top 10, whatever, come up with empty fuel tanks. So, it gets dangerous when you start messing with fuel. We all want an advantage, but there's a lot of stuff that goes into fuel that's carcinogenic, and nobody wants their kid to be behind the guy with something that's causing cancer coming out the back of his motor.
Right. So, like that's something to stay on.
Yeah.
And Park for May, like how they do over there. I mean, over here now, I don't know exactly how. I know that SCUSA and ROK do a fuel farm at Vegas from but that's even still like, well, I mean, that basically is Park for May because the tire stuff is a little bit different. I mean, you give out tires on the race weekend, but a lot of places that's how feasible is something like that. I don't feel like it is because it takes up so much space, and then you have the fire marshal worrying about coming down on you, right? With all that gas.
It takes up space. It takes up space. You can actually probably lessen the fire marshal because you're keeping all the gas in one place, and you can move it away from everybody. So if you play it right, you're actually lessening your fire marshal responsibility. But the main thing is it's an added cost.
Right.
I roughly figured it up, and to do Park for May for just fuel would be about 10 to 12 grand a weekend. So, I mean, then we're spreading that cost out among 200 entries. That's, we're adding 100, 150 bucks to an entry just to do Park for May for fuel. So, where's the break even point at?
Mm-hmm. So, where's the happiness of because I mean that's the crutch that everybody uses, right, when it comes to race series, to put one down or put another one up. I mean, you understand the like the crowd that we got at the USAC Brickyard race and what the entries were for that one. I mean, to have the number of on-site staff and officials and a fuel farm, I mean, that would have bankrupted that race completely. And that was one of the biggest congregations of karters we've seen in a long time.
I mean, we had almost 600 entries of that, but if we would have had to police it to that level, we would have had to have 6-8 people for just fuel.
Mm-hmm.
Let alone tires.
Is there, if you go in another direction, like say Park for May is obviously incredibly expensive every weekend that you can do it. Is there like a different sensor you can use or something, like different way of testing it to possibly try to catch what people are doing right now to get around everything? Is there anything that you guys have talked about with that in that direction?
Not that I know of. I mean, I'm not a big tech guy by any means.
From what I understand, there's like just the one, but it's a cops and robbers type thing, right? Like these sites that make fuel additives, or the people that make the fuel additives and advertise, right? They'll buy that sensor themselves. There's nothing that stops them from finding a way to get that sensor, or just show up to a race with that sensor at a race they don't care about getting DQ'd at, and they'll just start trying stuff to see what'll pass it. I mean, I'm not going to give anyone else more new ideas of how at a regular race with someone doing it, how you could go and check it. But, there's absolutely ways to get around, right?
Yeah, we did it back in the day in the Yamaha stuff all the time. And, you'd put X amount of this in and Y amount of this, and it would cancel the thing out.
Yeah.
And but it was dangerous stuff.
Yeah. It's no different than the tire prep game. It's no different than it's really no different on an on-track thing. I've talked with a lot of tech directors from my time of race directing. It's all very similar in the like you want to first of all, kind of keep it a little bit of a gray area, because the more that you black and white it, the more guys try to find loopholes around it, right? If you tell people exactly how to race, they're going to find a race scenario that, goes like uses that black and white, but really isn't the right way to race, or, again, when it comes to fuel, you could set a tester, you could set a sniffer, and the next year someone's going to find something out. So that is a constantly moving goalpost, as we, like to use that phrase a little bit from what we said earlier. That one's one that never goes away, trying to catch guys. That's why we have tech. That's why we have smart guys in tech, and they don't tell you going into the weekend what session they're going to check what and what, because you're not supposed to know. It's supposed to be a surprise. So they've got at least some cards in their hand to play poker against the guys that are going to play poker as well. So we've got some viewer questions as we get towards the end of wrapping up your segment here a little bit. This was from Dan Velpel. It came in a few minutes ago, Mike. He said, what's the plan with the bad batch of tires? So you mentioned the barcodes are going back over. Are those tires, like any leftover new tires, going to get dumped for a race at a regional or dealer, or is what was left over? I mean, was there any leftover new batches or new sets at all? And what's the process with those?
So there was nothing bad.
Yeah.
There's just different performance. There's no safety issues. There's just less performance than the previous batch. So I hate to call them bad batch, but what will happen is the different performance levels of tires, I think that's probably the more PC term for it.
Yeah.
Will get separated out, and we will make sure they are well controlled and only go with tires of the same performance level. So they might go, I mean, we ship stuff out of Orlando to the whole Western Hemisphere here. So we're going to be real careful to make sure that the fast stuff and the slower stuff aren't going in the same places anymore. And, we'll make sure all our dealers know how to keep them separate and everything. So.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Rainer Bug, this was from Facebook, asking, I don't know if you know the answer on this one. NHRA having a lifetime ban for getting caught for, I'm imagining fuel additives by what he means nasty stuff. Is that right? I don't know that rule.
Yeah, there's actually I think it's NHRA and maybe even NASCAR now. Mm-hmm. But they do have a lifetime ban, and because it gets into dangerous stuff. It gets into stuff the fire department or the extinguishers on site aren't prepared to put out. It gets into cancer causing agents. I mean, just like we talked about. So there's lifetime bans, and I would have nothing wrong with doing that if it was something dangerous, was brought into the fuel.
This one came in. You're welcome to chime in on this one. This one's not rock related, so you can all the questions that you may have to sweat. Well, this is a good one, and I'm curious maybe where you think on the answers for this one. So it's from Kevin M. Coleman. So SCUSA has a little bit different on their per race payouts than USPKS. Both of them do. You guys with ROK Vegas has cash payouts at that event. I think it's $2,500 to win for a lot of the classes, along with tickets. Winter Tour's more kind of tickets to Vegas and the big show like that. But in this case, from Kevin, saying, have you guys read the payouts for X30 Pro Junior, X30 Pro Senior? I'm guessing you guys probably buy myself and the rest of the cast here, but I'd like to include you on this because we've talked about some of this stuff. X30 Pro, X30 Pro Junior, they have it at 30. They are close. I think Senior's sitting around 27. The race is still a week away. It'll get over 30 for sure. Junior's at 25. X30 Junior's Ben and ROK GP Junior too, a little bit lighter. X30 more lighter because in comparison to the 100cc stuff, where, like you said, many sold out at 46. Senior and Junior are two classes, the only two right now slated for LCQs. Thoughts on the payout structure? So this is kind of an ongoing discussion. We've had a little bit on this, Mike, so I'll kind of kick it off a little bit. Basically, we've talked on this show kind of like trying to have, the classes in a way that's a good two-step ladder system and something to basically attract really fast drivers, really developed teams with a lot of resources and drivers with a lot of resources up away from, let's say, 100cc divisions and to strictly run 125. And the cash payouts are kind of part of that theory with a lot of these series. X30 Senior, you look down the grid, that's where all the major manufacturers are going to run their guys. KZ is now going to have that for PKS as it has with the Pro Tour. ROK as well is a good example, right? You look at the ROK Senior field and the ROK Shifter field, and at the top half, it's got a lot more depth and strength than VLR Senior, right? It's a natural, faster, so it's always going to attract guys to want to go faster. But more than anything, in the IAME side, they've kind of gotten into the habit of having money there. And there's been this discussion as numbers have grown in the more grassroots divisions, 100cc, and the minis and the micros getting a lot of entries, that they want to race for money as well. And my answer to it for the long time is I don't think that's the answer. I don't think I like having a two-step ladder system. I don't think that their 125 guys should be allowed to run KA. There's guys on that KA entry list that I do not think should be there. I don't think they should be allowed to run that anymore, at least without like a few years of, let's say, your pro level expires and you can come back if you're washed. I'll put myself on that list. I'm washed. You could put me in there, and I don't know if you could say I was and never was, whatever. But you have guys go there, and then it scares off what's supposed to be a grassroots class. What's supposed to be the easier dip your toes into national racing without going against factory level outfits. So you have the money to pull them away, but there is something to be said if the entry fees are similar, which, to be fair, they're not. It's a 100 entry fee jump to run X30 Junior, Senior, or KZ. I believe, I'm not 100% on that. I'm going to double check that right now. I think it's a $100 jump to be in a cash paying class versus not. But what do you think on all these discussions? Because we've had these for a little bit, Mike, while we got you here.
I hate payouts and go-karts. So, and Joe Janowski would be a great guy to have this question too, with the Star Series and NKA, because Joe has so much going on in the dirt world too that he insures that pays out like 50 grand some places to win.
Right.
So, Joe, in a nutshell, Joe describes sprint racing as more ego driven, and dirt racing as more dollar driven, cash driven. I think, I was around karting before you got paid anything. So, I never hardly remember any payouts on anything in the 90s, and it was, it seemed more pure or something. But I don't know. I definitely like the thing where the really pro guys aren't down in the lower classes and giving those guys a chance to learn and shine. I think it keeps them more encouraged to move up. I don't think we need to pay 8-year-old kids to go race go-karts.
No.
That's for sure.
I almost think that like a rebate would be really cool for those grassroots classes. Like if, let's say, they hit 40 entries, right? Everybody gets 25 or 50 bucks back, and then not only are those guys, if they pull more, they feel like they're getting something back from the series, they're all getting it back. And you're basically, what you're doing is you're making affiliate marketers out of your entries, because how often do we see nowadays guys making posts? It happens every once in a while, and when they do, they're normally pretty successful. Hey, I'm going to this race, get off the couch, come race me. But if you put some money behind that, where, oh dude, if my class goes from 20 to 40, I'm going to do some extra calls and text on my own as a driver, because I want my entry fee $100 lower. I'd like $100 back. I think that would be something that would be really cool for those classes, for the 100cc stuff, for the kids especially. Mini and micro, I'm with you, should not be racing for cash money. They are in the dirt world. There are places they do, but it's the parents. The parents just want something back, and we do live in a participation trophy era with youth sports as well. So this is giving everybody that participation trophy. I've kind of thought about it a lot because we've talked about all this stuff a lot. I don't even know as big as I used to be maybe a few months ago on individual cash payouts, but I would like to see a scholarship type system in the championship where it is cash in the championship. It's not racing for the checkered flag, but it encourages guys to stick it out for the season, even if they have a bad round, because maybe they'll still get 5th or 10th in the points and make back some money. It's easier for guys to structure rides for the year. A lot of guys, with the way the cash payouts are right now, they're on a race to race deal. And if they don't perform and get in the money or get close, then the team may not run them again. Whereas if they had one bad weekend, but they know that they, maybe had decent points and are coming out okay, and they have a shot to get in the championship money. And then also that's a way to kind of help boost guys up, is if you put more of the money to the end of the year instead of giving it out race by race. For a 100cc class champion, he could get enough money to make up the difference of the cost to go run the 125. So that's where my answer, I think it would be cool to see, is for the maybe some stuff have a scholarship, but I think a rebate program would be really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like that rebate idea.
I like that. I'm going to kind of echo what you're saying, Xander, but like 100cc shouldn't be the pro category. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you necessarily agree with that. You're not in your head like you are, but like that shouldn't be where people try to stay. You want to push people in to go to the pro category, stuff like that. We've talked about that before. That's not a new idea that I'm coming up with, but if you add, a prize payout like you do in X30, you're just encouraging people to stay there and kind of bringing. You've said this before. You're taking the money that people are putting in X30, you're just emphasizing it more into a KA now. But I like the scholarship idea there, where you try to push people to maybe try to go run X30 after they win a championship. And I can't tell if we lost Xander again or not. No, we didn't. Okay.
I'm here.
Really,
I was
really
letting our
second.
No. I was sending a text to our next guest, Chris Kardashian. We're running. Okay. We're said we're gonna go 30 and 30, and here we are at 49, 49, and I'm like, hey, we still got another half of the show to get to, so we can't stay on it too long. But
yeah. But yeah, like something to try to like help people elevate to the next level, I think would be more appropriate than just a prize payout for 30, 40 entries into the category. That's supposed to be a budget class where more people should have the ability to get there.
Hey, glad to see this at least. This is from Hayden Jones' dad, Corbett. There's 0 guys doing crossover right now. We've seen it, and most guys don't already out of respect. I think very few have. A couple guys have in the last few years, but it's been like their rookie season. Again, like you said, racing for ego. None of the guys that go and run up front in that click at the 125 or the pro shifter stuff want to take heat from someone saying they're farming, which that's the good side. They're farming, they're getting easy wins. The bad side is, why are you going and getting your butt kicked in what's supposed to be the tier below you? So at least in this case, doesn't look like there's any crossover. That's good. I still think there's some strong names in that field that maybe shouldn't, but that's a discussion for a whole other day. And we're not the only sport that sees it. The supercross guys see bushwhacking is a whole racing term that started from Kevin Harvick's rookie season of dominating Busch when he was supposed to be running that and part-time cup. And then Dale Earnhardt passes away and he runs both. And then the teams realize, oh, someone can run both series and win a title in both. And then everybody does it. So it's a problem all throughout racing of guys kind of knocking down, stuff below. But yeah, I was chewing on this idea for a little bit, and we kept having these discussions. We had them a lot through last year when it gets slow. Someone was joking over the offseason. We were joking. Everybody was complaining about weights, class weights. How you know it's the offseason, Mike, is when we start complaining about class weights. Then we start racing. We're not talking about whatever rates we ran at Piquet. People are complaining they felt like they got a bad set of tires, but We're not racing. We got to complain about something else because we're drivers. We whine, right? We're all racers. So, but I think the rebate would be something really cool, and that way,
like that.
It both incentivizes guys to go and fill their class up for you. So in a way, you're basically spending marketing dollars by doing the rebate. Money that you would spend on hiring, or paying someone to do social media or whatever. Getting that guerrilla marketing going, and then for the drivers, it's a kickback to everybody. It's not just a payout to the top 3 guys, and the same top 10 that run up front everywhere are going to win the money, and it doesn't matter to the guy that runs 20th, just wants to go have fun. So there's our
rebate.
Yeah, there's our cool classic cash payout topic that comes up here a lot. But Mike, thank you for coming on the show, and I do want to say that we the last thing is, like, you know, it's a new thing for the sport having us stream the races, right? I mean, this issue happens even just 3 years ago, and you're still probably going through all the motions you went through, but you don't have nearly the social media outlash that, you know, can happen because we're putting a bigger spotlight on our sport. Like you said, you know, every other part of racing at a higher level is used to it because they're on TV. The drama happens. People see what happens and they want answers. And, you know, you didn't have to come on the show and talk to us. You didn't have to come and give an explanation even further than the release, but you did. And I do appreciate that. And I'm sure that our viewers do too.
We want to be as transparent as we can and, you know, assure everybody that we're on it. We're working on it. We found solutions. We found the issues, found solutions, and we're going to learn from it and move forward.
Well, thanks for coming on again on the show, buddy, and we'll see you in a few weeks.
We'll see you in Orlando.
Yes, sir. That was Mike Burrell again with ROK. We've got Chris Kardashian, who's been waiting very, very patiently in the studio, the brand new owner of the Route 66 Sprint Series. This show is going to run a little long tonight. Appreciate you guys all tuning in. Stick with us here for this commercial break, our only break of the night. When we come back, the brand new regional series owner himself, Chris, is going to join us, who, again, like I said, super patient, super appreciative of him. And we got to talk about him and all the stuff that's coming up in the Midwest, because racing season up north, beyond just Florida, just California, and just Arizona kicks off here in not too long from now. So stick with us, guys.
Ready to go racing along the Gulf Coast? Karting the Coast is a family-oriented regional series that covers Mississippi and Louisiana. Its 2023 schedule consists of 10 races spread amongst Finish Line Performance Karting in Biloxi, Mississippi, and NOLA Motorsports Park in New Orleans. To find out more, visit coastalkarting.com. From 4-stroke to 100cc to 125cc and beyond, Technokart USA has a winning option for you. Based out of Des Plaines, Illinois, Technokart USA offers both chassis designed to win in all divisions of North American karting and a top-level race support program at the U.S. Pro Kart Series, Route 66 Sprint Series, select Cup Karts North America races, and both the ROK Vegas and SCUSA Super Nationals. Podiums, wins, and championships are waiting for you whenever you're ready to get on a Technokart. For more information, follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/TechnokartUSA. Kart Store USA is a kart parts supplier that racers and retailers can count on when they need reliable advice and service. We focus on servicing all racers with honesty and pride while maintaining customer satisfaction. We carry a full stock of Kart Republic and Tony Kart chassis, as well as IAMI and Vortex ROK engines. We've also got a host of other parts available and in stock, such as products from Rev Performance Materials, Jecco Racing Seats, and more. We have a 100% satisfaction guarantee, and on top of that, if your order exceeds $200, shipping is on us. Check out all we have to offer today by visiting us online at kartstore-usa.com. Don't settle for a national engine builder. Take care of yourself with an international one. SRP Engines is a global industry leader in engine services, specializing in engine formulas such as KZ, OK, OKJ, and Mini 60. SRP Engines is the engine of choice for Magic Kart USA and helped power North America's #1 ranked pro shifter driver AJ Myers to the 2021 SuperKarts USA Pro Tour National Championship. SRP Engines can also service any spec engine class of your choice, including IAMI and ROK divisions. However, if you're looking for the absolute choice when it comes to KZ shifter engines, there is nobody better. For more information, contact Amr Sanada at srp-engines.com. KC Happy Hour is proudly presented by the ROK Sonoma Karting Championship, presented by Cameron Race Promotions, the most competitive Northern California karting series. Featuring a 2-day format with practice on Saturday and racing on Sunday, multiple track configurations, and a massive prize structure including tickets to ROK Vegas, race car test opportunities, and race rewards. ROK Sonoma is the training ground of multiple national karting champions each year and race car champions as well. Featuring a full ROK Cup USA class structure with each race weekend streamed live via YouTube, it's a series you cannot miss. For more info, check us out online at zanzarukarting.com.
All right, welcome back to KC Happy Hour. Myself and Aaron Hackmeister Ang here, and now joining us for the very first time, Mr. Chris Kardashian. Chris, we got you, and I appreciate you joining us and being so patient while we were just wasting your time for the last little bit, buddy. Thank you for coming on.
Hey, Xander. Hey, Aaron. No worries, man. I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
So a little introduction for yourself, right? Let's kind of rewind the clocks back a little bit. You know, did you first get into karting just because Alexander was involved? Had you always been involved in wanting to race and get into karting on your own before him?
Yeah, now you're asking the question, was Alexander liking the racing or was I loving the racing? I'm probably one of those dads that I loved racing and was hoping he'd like it. So we got into it in 2006. We probably did it a little bit different. He practiced a lot before he ever raced. He had thousands of laps at our home track before I actually put him in a race. And I would tell you, I don't know if he had natural talent or not. He'd probably argue with me, but I think he took 4th place in his first race, and then he won just about every race after that. So, so that was in 2006, and we did mostly club racing. In fact, we still race at our local club as often as we can. Alexander lives in Phoenix, so he flies home as often as he can to support the club. And then we started doing, I think it was Tag USA, did some Florida Winter Tour back in the Rotex days. So, yeah, we started doing some of the national stuff, got our butts kicked. And then, I don't know, at some point, maybe 2016 or so, we started doing some Route 66, the regional racing. And that's really where we've been racing mostly. We'll do a SCUSA event here and there, PKS event. But we really have a passion for the club and for the region.
So, like you said, you've been doing a lot of Route 66 racing. Obviously, you do your homework. There's millions and millions of dollars to own in a series, so you decide over the winter, you're buying, right? Isn't that how the story goes? You're just going to, buy a little bit. Everybody's making millions on these regional series, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure that that's the case. So I'm retired. I got the time to put into it. I think you guys know I have a passion for the sport. I've tried to serve or participate in the sport in different ways. Worked with WKA for a few years, done some race director stuff, anything I can just to be supportive of the series. I think it's a great way for families to spend time together. So, I got into the Route 66 because I had the time. I didn't necessarily get in it to either blow my retirement or to make a new retirement. We'll see what happens. But, it's all kart numbers. If the numbers are there, the series will be okay financially. So we're working hard with some ideas and promotion, doing this kind of a program, just getting the word out there, what we're all about, I think is really going to help.
And what you're all about, I mean, you and you reached out to me and we chatted a bit on the way over to Vegas for the Super Nats when your son and Alexander were racing back in November and talking about this deal. And, it sticks out to me, your 4 pillars, right? I mean, you didn't at the time have an idea of exactly what a race weekend would look like, if there'd be any changes, what you want to do. But you have this, specific vision of both why you want to get in and what you want families and racers and kids and adults alike to get out of the Route 66 Sprint Series. So can you elaborate a little bit on that, of your 4 pillars of what you've got, you want to build this brand or continue building this brand off of as an existing championship already?
Yeah, I'll try and make this as concise as I can. But before I jump into the 4 pillars, my vision for the series is to keep it a regional series. It's not to grow it geographically. It's got to be growth organically. And that means working with the clubs, supporting the clubs, and pulling from the clubs, and it's a stepping stone. It's a ladder system, right? To go from the club to the region, from the region to the national, and then on to cars or whatever. So my wheelhouse, or our wheelhouse, is going to be in the region. We've got those 4 pillars. We can go through them quick, but the idea behind the pillars is to go after that market that we're interested in, which is working with the clubs and giving that ladder system. So the first pillar, the obstacle for a lot of the club families to go racing at a higher level is the cost. So my commitment to the Midwest is we're going to drive as many costs out of regional racing as we can. And that's not an easy thing to do, particularly right now with the economy the way it is. If you were to ask all the race teams what their number one complaint is, and for that matter, a lot of the racers, it's too long. People are showing up for Thursday morning practice. That means they're showing up with their rigs on Wednesday for a regional race. We get out late Sunday. The folks in Minnesota have a 700-mile trip to the tracks in Indiana. I mean, we're burning almost a week to go to a regional race, right? That's crazy. And it isn't just me and other racers. The teams don't want to do it. There were some teams that have been racing Route 66 that weren't going to race Route 66 in 2023 because they couldn't afford to burn another week for a regional series. And I'll tell you that those teams, names don't matter right now, but those teams that told me they weren't going to race Route 66 in 2023 are committed now. And they're actually investing as sponsors. So number one, we're going to eliminate Thursday practice. That's going to save money in travel, hotel, food, vacation time for parents to get away from work, time away from kids for school. We're going to get rid of Thursday practice. We're going to start Friday. We're going to start Friday at 2:00. The idea is to have 3 rounds of practice on Friday. People can show up on Friday morning. Friday practice is optional, but they can, for the most part, everybody that races in the clubs in the Midwest, they can get to all of the tracks other than us folks in Minnesota, right? Indiana's a long ass haul, but for the most part, everybody can leave early Friday morning, be at the track Friday, and they can be racing their 3 rounds of practice on Friday. So the other thing we're going to do, it may not be the most popular decision right now, but I think it will grow on people. Doesn't matter if you're in Formula One or IndyCar or any other race series, there's a limit on number of tires. You show up at a regional Route 66 race, and you can bring 5 sets of tires at $250 a set. That's crazy. Mm-hmm. If I'm racing at the club, why would I show up at a regional race if I got to spend $1,000 on tires?
Yeah.
For a go-kart race.
Right.
For a trophy at the end of the day. That's just not right. So, and I'm one of them, right? We could burn through 4 sets of tires easily for a route race. So we're going to have a 2-set tire limit for 2 cycle. Like we have always done, we're going to start in qualifying on new tires. Your practice tires are going to get scanned. So you can start with a new set or you can start with a used set. But we're scanning tires for practice. So again, just like the big boys, there's not an unlimited budget on tires. So we're going to save racers money on tires. 4 cycle, you can race on new or used. We're not making that rule that you have to start on new tires for 4 cycle. We're going to charge less for fuel. Now, all the details aren't worked out yet, but instead of selling 5-gallon pails, we're going to sell fuel by the bulk. I'm targeting to be 40% less money than what the fuel cost has been in the past. And we're going to sell it by the gallon. So the guys who are running mini and micro, they may not need 5 gallons of fuel, right? So, but they got to buy 5 gallons because it comes in a 5-gallon pail. So we're going to sell fuel that way. The last thing that comes to mind, I'm probably missing something here, but if you pre-register for 2, 3, or 4 events, right? We're a 4-event series. If you sign up for 2, 3, or 4, your entry fees are going to be less money than what they were in previous years. And again, I would say that that's not an easy thing to do with the economy the way it is. So we're looking at everything that we can to drive costs out to make regional racing more affordable. So that's the first pillar. That one's probably the longest. You want me to go on and tell you what the second pillar is?
No. Keep going. Man.
All right.
Please. Yeah. No, this has been great.
I gotta throw Lemke a shout out to Bill Lemke. I don't know if he's on or not, but he was one of the first guys that I talked to, and just asked him his opinion about Route 66. This is long before he knew that I was talking to Mark about buying the series from Mark. And by the way, I got to give Mark a shout out. I talk to Mark every day. he is my my guiding angel in this whole damn thing, because I don't know what I'm doing, right? I know from the racer side what I would want it to do. I got some business sense. I'm trying to merge the two things that I think I know and execute on this thing, but I couldn't do without Mark. So anyway, I asked Lemke what he thought about the series. And I don't know, I guess you probably know Bill pretty well. He's not short on opinions, and I appreciated that. That's why I went to him. He said it's not fun anymore. That's it. Not fun. That's the only thing he could say. And as I talked to more and more people, everybody said the same thing. It's not fun anymore. So here's the thing. It's a regional series. It's not national. It's going to be about family fun. Now, if I can't execute on that strategy, then Xander, I'll sell the series to you in 2 years. But we're going to focus on family fun. And what does that mean? Well, it means that there's going to be more to the weekend than just racing. Yeah, we're there to race. I don't like to lose. I don't think anybody who races likes to lose. But we can teach some life lessons, that there's more to life and to being happy than just winning a race. And again, I usually am pretty cranky when we don't win. But, you know, maybe I'll learn a lesson from this too. So we're going to do things like have inflatables for the kids. We're going to have something that we used to do at Route. Cornhole, right? We're going to have a competition. We'll give away a free set of tires, something like that. We're going to have a reactionary games, right? Every race car driver, guy or gal's got an ego because we're all the best, right? Well, let's go see what everybody's reflexes are. We'll give prizes on those reactionary games. We're going to mix up the format a little bit. We're going to have, I've been calling it knockout qualifying. I've been corrected by Nate Dean, who's doing my social media. He says you need to call it shootout. So this is my first time publicly saying we're going to do shootout and qualifying. So the idea is if the classes are large enough, everybody will go out and they'll do their qualifying. And then the top 5 are going to do a second round of qualifying. 1 lap. How's that for pressure on a driver? So the top 5 guys are going to go out. They're going to do one warm-up lap, right, or 1 out lap and then 1 hot lap. We're going to put more points on qualifying than we have in the past. Like F1, I think qualifying is really exciting. I've got a couple of guys, young guys, that are going to do the broadcast. They're going to have fun with this thing too. So I think the shootout's a big thing. We're going to try and get done a little bit earlier on Saturday so we can focus on games and prizes. And we're going to try and get out earlier on Sunday. So the whole event weekend will hopefully be shorter, and that will be more fun for everybody instead of dragging to get home at 2 or 3 in the morning. So I'll tell you my third pillar. The fourth one's really quick. Third one will be pretty quick. I got involved in WKA a few years ago because of something called respect. I always get emotional when I talk about this, and I never see it coming. I should probably change one of my pillars and quit talking about respect because I can't get through it.
It's okay.
I got to tell you, it doesn't matter where you go. If you talk to go-karting teams, IndyCar teams, insurance companies, drivers, promoters, social media, you guys, EKN, everybody says the same damn thing about karting. Rough driving. Nobody likes it. You think an IndyCar team wants to have drivers on board that are crashing up their equipment? So here's what happens. If somebody quits a series, doesn't matter if it's Route 66 or another series, when a parent packs up their stuff and leaves the track and says, I'm never going to race this series again, why do you think they said that? It sure as hell ain't because they won the race. And it's probably not because they lost the race. It's probably because they got punted off the track multiple times over the weekend. So what kind of respect are we teaching our kids if they're not respecting other drivers on the track? I'm telling you, I've got the will to do what I'm saying. We're going to focus on driver respect. We are going to have drivers meetings. I caught what you said earlier about drivers meetings and why do you have drivers meetings with 8-year-olds. I'm going to tell you why. because the 8-year-old kids and the parents and the team principals and everybody else is going to get on the same page. We're going to respect our fellow drivers on the track. I can try and regulate that or legislate it by giving penalties, but that doesn't work. We can't catch them all the fault and all the blame. It has to come from within the drivers. So I'm going to have meetings with the team principals and the parents and the drivers, and we're going to talk every single weekend about driver respect. And that isn't just on the track. That's on the track. It's in the scale house. I'm tired of seeing fights. I get mad. I yell at people, right? So it starts with me, right? But we're going to talk about those things. It's at the podium. It's cleaning up. This is stupid, but it's what I believe. At the end of the weekend, Mike Adams told me something, and I'll never forget this. He said, when the club race is over at their track and everybody's gone, the facility's nice and clean. When Route 66 comes and leaves, it's a little bit dirtier. It's a little bit messier. When a national series comes and leaves, the place is a mess. Why is it Mike Adams' problem to clean up after us? Why are we leaving tires? Why are we leaving 5-gallon pails of fuel jugs? Why are we leaving zip ties and all of our other garbage? Those are the things that I think are life lessons that we all should be teaching our kids, reminding ourselves. I don't mean to make this into too big of a deal, but we can all be better people and it can become contagious. So if I can't be successful as a teaching opportunity to teach people about respect, I'm going to get the hell out of owning the series. This is why I bought it. The last thing is partners. Mm-hmm. We can call them sponsors. We can call them partners. For all the people that are out there listening, I don't care what series you race in, your series wouldn't exist without the dollars that are being invested by the partners. And nobody is getting rich as a race team. I don't care what race team you look at, they're driving old pickup trucks and everything else. Ain't nobody getting rich in this business. When they cough up $500 or $1,000 or $2,000 or whatever it is to invest in any series, that is really, really hard-earned money. The series needs those partners. But we as racers need to recognize and appreciate what they're doing to make the sport possible. And for those companies that are partnering with my series or any other series, we need to be catering our business to them. They need to get a return on their investment. So we're going to focus in every way that we can on recognizing who our partners are, because without them, the sport is not sustainable. So those are the 4 pillars, a little bit serious at the end. Sorry. It is about fun, right? That's what the series is going to be known for, is fun karting. All right, I'll be quiet and let you ask. You didn't say a word for like 10 minutes, and that's not like you, Xander.
It's not, but Chris, I know that I wanna drop this little bit on you. I want to put you on the spot for this. You and I were talking through the day and yesterday. First of all, yesterday was pretty last second to ask you to come on.
Yeah,
and I know today
so.
you were very, very trepidatious. Yesterday you're like, I don't know if I can make it tonight. You know what, Xander? I'm gonna make it. And then we're talking through the day. I don't know about video. I'll call in. But Chris, before we go any further, my friend, what I want to do is I want to bring all these comments up on the screen that have come in from all these people while you were just talking. I don't know if in our entire history of doing 77 episodes of this show that I've seen this much love come in the comment section on YouTube and on Facebook for you. We got Trevor Marsha coming in saying, my guy Chris Kardashian. Justin Dittrich saying, I'm rooting for Route 66. Cameron Weinberg's mom saying, thank you for choosing one entry for your 20 over the safety of our kids. Penalize where it should be. Braden Eves, Chris Kardashian for president. A thumbs up for Michael Bowers. We need this in Florida from One Shot Jay. Alex said, this sounds so sick as I'm getting into karting. Dylan Jan saying, this plan for Route 66 sounds great. Do anything and everything to cut the cost and time. I've never run Route 66 before, but I may be compelled to branch out this year. Great points. And there's still more coming in. Kevin Coleman just chipped in and said, I want to sponsor. I know a part of the show is we're going to say you're still looking for more partners on the show. But, Chris, there's part of the reason I was so quiet. I didn't want to interrupt you on such a roll. And I knew this from, all of our talks through the racetrack. I mean, you've been supportive of me since the first race that you heard me on the microphone at any race. And you said,
I love you, man.
Nothing but positive. And I love you too, buddy. And, I knew that, hearing that you were going to, this was something you're interested in of picking up the reins from this series where Mark left off and take it up. There's no doubt in my mind, first of all, it's going to be successful. But, I'm so glad you took me up on wanting to come on this show, because just off the comments alone, I know from experience of this show, people are if one person comments, you got 10 more thinking the same thing at home, and everybody not only fully agrees with you, everything you said I agree with. My joke about the drivers meeting, you're right. We do need to preach respect at every drivers meeting, and that is true. It's just, we also need to make sure that the kids pay attention, because sometimes you tell them a start box and they go to the team coach or the team owner and they're like, all right, what's the start procedure? The team owner didn't go and the kid didn't really understand or didn't pay attention. So that's what I was meaning by that. But you're absolutely right on every pillar of respect. I mean, from having fun at the races and trying to take care of the families, and everyone can relate to wanting costs down, because we all spend way too much money no matter where we are in a budget. We might have $100 a year for a rental league and we spend $150. You might have $5,000 or $10,000 to run club racing, spend $20. You might have a $50,000, $100,000 national budget and we manage to spend $150,000. Everybody overspends because we all love this sport. We're all addicted. And so hearing a series owner that, not only is saying that, you've got to do these things, but again, like you said, with both the fun on bringing that stuff to the event as well. I mean, you were actively in the year making changes, right? And changes, always tough for everybody, right? We've been a change to the industry, and we've felt that on a lot of fronts, both good and bad. And at the same point, I mean, this is a big change, but I agree with you wholeheartedly, right? I think in the phone call I talked to you, the format I mentioned it was, that I had in mind, it was kind of similar to where you've kind of landed up at, where, you've got time where guys could even miss Friday and they're still going to get 3 rounds of practice on Saturday, plus the qualifying, plus a heat race, then a heat race and a main event on Sunday, and get out of Sunday really early. I really, really am a big fan of that format, because even with moving Thursday practice away and you just have Friday practice, and in your case, your Friday practice still means you could leave the house early Friday morning and not do a hotel Thursday and not take off work or school on Thursday. So it still is only one day gone, and you're going to get home, before midnight on Sunday night. Most of these were well before midnight.
You hope, yeah.
So that's really cool. Even Trevor Marshall going, hey, you got your 2 sets, miss the Friday practice, burn your, run 3 sets of practice Saturday morning with that set of tires, but limiting the set of tires, right? That's very unprecedented in our sport to do something like that. But it's not unprecedented in any other kind of racing. We've just never really put ourselves in check. But, again, you're a race dad, right? Alexander still races as much as he can for fun, and you understand it. And having someone that, I think I can't remember if I was talking with you or someone else that, during, I don't do it so much anymore, but, when we were really getting going with Kart Chaser, I spent a lot of race weekends working on the side, whether it was commentating or race directing, but I was trying to make sure, at least in the years prior, that I raced a little bit during the year. So I still had that very fresh perspective in my mind of, what it was like to be in the driver's shoes, in the entry fee shoes of every, what is it like to be over there? And again, you've got that recent experience on the club, the regional, the national level, just last year, just this year even, again as well. So there's no doubt that you're going to be successful in it. But like I said, before we get back to the convo, I just wanted to let you know, I mean, the amount of positive people that are coming in is the most I've ever seen on this show. We've got a ton of people tuning
Thank
in. So
you.
you got a lot of love coming your way, buddy. I really want you to know that, man, because
Thank you. That means a
I
lot.
enjoyed listening to you.
Look,
I want to jump in here too. Chris,
no, you
before you
can't.
get going
This is my
again, like
time, man.
I was so excited to hear that you were doing this because I'll go back a little bit. My first ever experience with your family was 2016. I had just started. This is my second year of racing. I'm racing at Badger, and it's the weekend before Route 66 out there, and Alex is racing, and he comes out to the club race, and he's running for practice and whatnot, and we end up finishing the race, and he made a pass on me, and he came up and he was like, "Hey man, you did a great job racing." Alex doesn't know who I am. I have never raced outside of Badger. I have never done anything. And you raised Alex with enough respect to go up to somebody that he had never met, never known, didn't even know was going to be around in the next week or at all. And he came up to me and he talked to me. And every time that I've approached you guys afterwards, you've been very nice, very friendly. Always somebody that I knew would have that right perspective there, has the respect, has the good mindset of what to do for all this stuff. So I was really excited to hear you say this, and everything that I see that you're doing, I see where you're coming from with the tires, with the weekend formats that you're doing now, with all this stuff. And like, I just kind of want to just give a testimony of like, you are very passionate about what you're doing. You're doing this because you're passionate about the sport. And I know that you're going to do really well with it. And you have a lot of support already, just even from
Thank
outside
you,
Xander
Aaron.
and everybody else as well.
You have
Aaron,
a ton, man.
That's a cool story that you shared. Look, we all love our kids, right? I love Alexander, and God, I hope he's not listening to this because I'm going to be embarrassed and I'm going to embarrass him. You know, his mom died last year, and last year was a tough year for us. His mom really gets the credit for raising him, but I'm going to tell you, he is a good kid. He went to one of the hardest engineering schools in the United States, and he was top of his class in astronautical engineering. Everything he's done in his life, he succeeded at. He's never got grounded, got yelled at a couple times by me, but you know, he never got grounded. He never got in trouble in school. He's got a great engineering job. Look, all of these things that he is, I give credit to racing. And I mean that. And I'll tell you the other thing, you know, I've got a bit of a fuse, and he'd get on my case if I got out of line. And that makes me proud of him. And, you know, again, his mom gets a lot of that credit, but I think that racing is an incredible sport for life lessons, right? Competition, respect. You know, there's so many things that we learn at the racetrack. So yeah, love the sport. You know, you guys talked about tire prep and fuel. I'm going to just say this right now because there's no room for that, right?
Yeah,
that's the whole respect thing.
Mm-hmm.
I never even thought about the whole carcinogenic, if that's the right word, effect of all these fuel additives and tire doping. Here's the thing. You're not respecting yourself. You're not respecting your fellow competitors. Why would you cheat, right? I just don't get that. And I don't know that we have a rule. I'll talk to Rick Jump about some of that stuff. But there's no room for intentional cheating, right? I mean, you can get DQ'd because of CCs in an engine and whatever. I don't understand all that tech stuff. That's why I got Rick. But intentional cheating, I don't want your money. Don't come.
Mm-hmm.
There's no place for it, for sure, you know?
Yeah.
And so to get a little bit, so I don't take too much of your time. I'm taking a lot already, and like you and I joked, we could go on for 8 hours talking shop, right? But if there was, you know, one thought that would cross a parent's mind when they leave a Route 66 race this year, what would you want to kind of be on their mind, win, lose, or draw from the race weekend? What do you want them walking away from an event this year kind of thinking?
You know, I don't know that the word's already in my mind. I don't know if it's what you're looking for or not, but it's fun. That's it. It's to come to an event. And yeah, if you don't win, it's not as much fun, but to come to an event and go, you know what, that was fun. And that's it. And it's fun for the family, right? I don't think we talked about this, but we're going to do kid carts. Now we got to get people to sign up, but there's a lot of, look, I don't know anything about social media. I can spell the word social media. I don't know if it's 2 words or 1 word, but whatever. There's a lot that Nate and EKN and what we're doing now, talking about what our goals are, but kid karts is a big part of it, right? So we gotta build the sport from the bottom up. You can't keep having guys like Alexander, 23, 24 years old, being your kart numbers, right? That doesn't make sense. So I really believe that what our mission is to have family fun, and that includes getting the 5-year-olds involved in the sport as well. And if you want to talk about format, Jill Dean, who's my operations manager, and her son Nate Dean, Nate's doing the social media, and I guess he publicized the format. And we're going to a 1 event format. And if we want, we can talk about that, because I know there were questions on social media. But you take this where you want.
Yeah, well, I think that's a good way to talk about it, right? So you and I went back and forth on this even back then when we were talking in November, and it's a common thing all the way up to the national race weekends as well, of kind of what people want to do and what do we want our weekends to look like, right? I think in a lot of ways our sport swings from extremes on a pendulum, and for a few years we go one way, and another few years we kind of were like, well, we get tired of that and we go the other way. Going back to some of the really old interviews with Tom Kutcher when he started SCUSA California Pro Kart Challenge before he even bought SCUSA, he was like, I want you to just be so tired at the end of the day that you felt like you got your money's worth for pounding a lot of laps. And then that's kind of been the mantra of USPKS when it started. We're going to give you a long race. We're going to give you a lot of laps. And Pro Tour same way. And every event since then, at least in my time in the sport, has been about dividing the entry fee on the amount of minutes you have on the racetrack. But it's made our days and our weekends very long. You put more laps, you burn through more tires, more minutes on the engine, and it does raise the cost. And yeah, we're getting more laps, and even with the format you have, more laps than anyone racing cars is going to get in the same number of days for sure. But, we lose sight of, why we do this, right? For 99.9%, probably even a higher percentage of that, everyone driving, it's their hobby away from school or away from their 9 to 5, and, making it so that way they can't even get into work or school on Monday without passing out or being achy isn't a good idea either. So, your format was again, it was something that I've been a big fan of the way the regional formats look like this, where if you have that one main event, you don't have to have as many. You have more time to play with the sessions. You don't need a million heat races, so you can turn some of those time blocks in the morning on Saturday into practices, which you guys have done. I know you've heard back and forth on both. Obviously, you've landed on something very similar to that. Has that cool aspect with the shootout qualifying, but what was the process like? I'm sure you took a lot of calls and a lot of talks. A lot of people it is nice to have the 2 main events. And that was some of the comments on the post, right? Everyone's like, well, it's nice to have that reset. You have a bad Saturday, you wake up Sunday, it's a new day. But, it does mean that if you do 2 races, you're going to want warm up in the morning. You're going to want to qualify. We've set the standard of heat racing, so you got to have at least 1 heat, maybe a pre-final, and then a final. 4 sessions in a day with 8 classes is usually an 8 to 9 hour day minimum. So, it makes a lot of track time. I have to imagine that was a big discussion, right, of trying to balance how much time are we going to be at the racetrack? Is there time to get home on Sunday? Is there enough time to give guys practice on Saturday? And probably why you landed on the 1 main event, right?
So yeah, my initial thought, we're doing 2 events on the weekend. I like it. I like that format. But here's the thing. You try and get the day done earlier on Saturday so we can have dinner, right? And have some games and have some fun. And everybody says it's too long on Saturday. We get done too late. So we're already too late. I'm adding a kid kart class. I'm adding knockout qualifying. And the other complaint that the drivers all have is the races aren't long enough. Mm-hmm. Well, so everybody wants more classes. They want to get done earlier, and they want longer races.
Yeah.
Well, the math doesn't work, right? So
right.
Here's a cool thing about longer races, right? We know that I don't like the rough driving. And by the way, everybody doesn't like the rough driving. The
Yeah, I don't know a
drivers
lot of
all
guys that
complain
like
about it, right? Everybody
Yeah.
complains about it. We have longer races. There might be less rough driving because there's not going to be such a rush. If you had a bad qualifying, you threw a chain in qualifying, whatever it is, you don't have to bonsai every single corner and make a bonsai pass so you can move up in a race that's 6 laps or 8 laps long. So the idea is longer races on the heat races, give people time to work their way up. It's progressive, right? So now if you start 30th and you get up to 20th, well, the second heat race, you're going to start 20th and, maybe you get up to 10th or whatever. And then the final will be, a points accumulation, and you'll start based on your finishing position of the 2 heat races. I really believe that, yes, there's an argument that can be made that says if we have 2 events, a Saturday event and a Sunday event, that if you have a bad Saturday, well, you can recover and you can go have a good Sunday. Well, if you have a bad Saturday on a heat race, guess what? You still got a heat race Sunday, and you take those 2 positions, your 2 finishing positions, and you combine those to get your starting position for the final. And you've got more laps. So the goal is not to give less laps over the weekend. I think we're targeting to have the same number of laps. They'll just be longer races, and obviously the turnaround time is everything is quicker if you do fewer pre-finals and the whole Saturday Sunday thing. Hopefully that made sense the way I said that. So
No, it does.
a lot of
Yeah.
thought went into the format, and there's no way to get people out earlier Saturday, earlier on Sunday, and do all the things that we want, and have a qualifying, a pre-final, final Saturday and Sunday. So I think people are going to like it. I think that the longer races is going to overcome the concern that people have about why we're not doing 2 events.
Do you know exactly the total number of classes you're sitting at now? Is it 9? Because it's
It is very good.
9. Yeah. So
Don't ask me to name them, but yeah, there's 9. It's the same thing as last year. There's KA Junior, KA Senior, KA Masters, 206 Sportsman, 206 Junior, 206 Senior. Kid Kart. How many was that?
Kid Kart. That was close. They
Okay.
can see it all, right? Nate's on top. We know we got Nate on top of it with the format posted properly, the classes and all that. But the reason I was asking is, so right, like you talk about the day. If you give maybe more laps in the session, right? There's the dead time that always has to happen in between every single session on track to clear the racetrack. Depending on the track you go to, we talked about this at the Piquet track for the ROK guys. That track was a 65-second lap at full speed. And so you're talking 65 seconds from first to potentially last, depending how far back the guy at the end is running, to give him the checkered. And then everyone's doing a cool down lap. So before the recovery vehicle even rolled onto the racetrack, you're already 2 minutes there per session. Then recovery to run out with the golf cart, pick it up, take it over, get clear, get back in position is normally at the quickest another 2 minutes, sometimes 3. So you could be looking between, when you run your race day, 2.5 to 5 minutes of dead time between every broken session. And you do the math on that. Let's say it's 4 minutes for 9 classes. That's 36 minutes per rotation through the order. So that's 36 minutes of dead track in a rotation. So if you cut out one session, but you add laps to everybody else, that's 36 minutes of pure laps you could be giving. So you're still giving these guys, again, like you said, the number of laps they ran last year, it's just divided in a different way, longer races to take out some of that urgency as well. And that totally, makes sense. And again, you can put that all still, you don't have to run that full 36 minutes. You can make the day a little bit shorter. It's something that I'm very familiar with because I was in Nate's position for many years, from club racing to the regional racing. And even kind of, even just last week, I was sending a proposal to Scoos on some ideas I had for their Pro Tour timeline, which I've, very, very lucky to even have the ear of a lot of the series of the guys that we do to say, hey, I think we could do something, this way and a little bit different. So, no question, Chris, I mean, obviously, I think anyone who tunes in even for a little bit of this is going to see, truly how genuine you are. And like I said, this was a big reason why I wanted to have you on and have you talk to, because it's, it's like we're in people's living room. It's like we're having a conversation with them, and they feel that connection. They can see you and your face and really your intention. It's like having that conversation with the 100+ people that have tuned in at any given point live through this show. So, I know that we're still early. There's a lot of moving pieces. You've unretired yourself, and it is a full-time job managing everybody in racing and everything. So, but we're a couple months out, and we've still got some slots, right, for some more marketing partners to join in and sponsor the series.
Yeah.
I know one guy on here, like I said, Kevin Coleman, who's been a big fan of our show. Kevin, as always, thanks for tuning in. He says he'd be loving to sponsor. So how can guys get in contact with you? What's the best way? Is it good to message the page? What's all
yeah,
that?
I mean, you can social media, because Nate and Jill will get me the information. Look, I busted your chops today because I didn't know how to get online, right? I am not a technology guy. If you go to the Route 66 webpage, Route 66 karting, hell, I should know that by heart, but I just Google Route 66 karting and I get the webpage. My email and my cell phone number are on there. I got one phone. That's it. So anybody wants to call me, I'll talk to them for 2 hours. But yeah, if you're interested, look, we need it. And I don't mean to make a commercial out of this, but we need partners. And if somebody is interested, just reach out to me either through social media or go to the webpage and you can contact me direct.
Well, Chris, my philosophy and our philosophy with everything that we've done, has been to just, put out good, do stuff what we think's the right way of what people would want, what we would want if we were in their shoes, and and the right circumstances, resources, and partners and people will come together. And we've so far haven't gone under yet on that philosophy. And I have a really, really good feeling your email is going to blow up a little more after this show. I really hope so. It seems like it off these comments alone. So, again, thank you so much. I know this was a lot. It's out of your comfort zone. It's out of the comfort zone for just about everybody we ever bring on here. They're like, I don't want to do media. I just want to go to the racetrack, do my thing, put on my events, put my go-kart on the track, put my helmet on. We're all a little bit introverted. It's a lot for me too. I have to, doing the at least with this, we're just talking to each other. We don't see them. I know the toughest part for me has always been staring people in the eye at the podiums, and I have to be the crazy madman on the mic. But you look them in the eye, at least when you're in the broadcast booth or when you're doing the live stream. I'm just talking to a computer. So, but anyway, thank you so much for coming on.
I'll give you a virtual hug and nobody's going to see it, right? It's just you. It's just the three of us.
It's just us, man.
Hey, Xander, you mentioned it earlier. I've been a huge fan of yours for a lot of years, and I do love you. And Aaron, you sharing that story means a lot to me. So I don't know if Alexander saw this, but I don't know if you guys record these or not, but Alexander probably should hear that, because I'm proud of you sharing that. Anyway, anytime you want to have a conversation, you know how to get a hold of me. I love talking about karting, man. So
yeah, well, we definitely will, and we absolutely will. And like I said, I think a lot of people will as well. And I love you too, buddy. I appreciate all the support over the years. And I think a lot of people are excited for what Route 66 is going to be this year. And there's no question, you're going to be a big part of that. So thank you so much for coming on the show, my friend. And it is recorded, so we'll have a lot of people probably coming back to this or listening on the podcast options they have on all week long. They got a lot. And here, you know what? I guess I got to send this over to you. Donation of $5 from Justin saying amazing chat tonight. You're a big part of that. So, you know what? That's going to be my pit pass money to get out to a Route 66 race later this year. I'm going to try and get out and come see you. All right.
I'll
buy you a cheeseburger, man.
That sounds
if we have the time, I'll try to come on out and at least see. I'll make sure to stop by and talk to you as long as we have the time. There's no other event going on.
Yeah,
I can come out. I'll come out.
It'll be busy. That's for sure, man. I really do believe that. So thanks again, Chris. We appreciate
You're welcome,
it, my friend.
And thank you to all the fans that are out there listening. I appreciate everybody.
We appreciate you, my friend. So Chris Kardashian, guys, as you heard him, the Route 66 Sprint Series, brand new owner, brand new venture for him, but he's been in karting for a while. He's been a racer's dad. He's loved the sport, and he's got a lot of really, really cool stuff coming for that program. So like you mentioned, if you want to get involved, there's plenty of ways too. If you haven't entered for that series, that's coming up. For Aaron and myself, we've got a busy schedule. Obviously, Casey's got a big national tour. We've got plenty of other club and regional stuff we're going to try and get to. So, some nights in this show, we have a little bit of everything. This show had we had our little tout out for CK&A and for Challenge of the Americas. There's big racing going on. We wrapped up some region, the club level, Fremont 250, the Snowball 250 at Fremont Raceway Park. Got that one right. Shout out to Scott Smith. Thank you guys for tuning in, but this was cool, man. This was a cool night. So we're back next week. We have Dave Serra, Mr. Winningest Australian karter of all time, will join the show next week. He's stateside bound for some of the racing coming at Orlando with that 3 national races coming to Orlando Kart Center. We'll be headed over there to do a happy hour. I think we're going to do one over at Ryan Norberg's new Norberg Karting Academy shop at some point. The move out starts. I fly out to Florida tomorrow for our next 5-week stint. So we got a lot going on, a lot of good stuff with the sport as a whole. As always, guys, thank you for tuning in. Aaron, along with myself, we appreciate it. We will see everybody back next Tuesday. Not missing it this time because we won't have any flights to catch.